Somewhere in an archive, there is a document that doesn't exist. A birth certificate, an American one, and the name on it would have changed everything. Not by removing a monster from history, but by making him one of us.
Picture him young. Not in lederhosen and alpine fog, but in suspenders and Ohio mud. His name is Adolf. The kids at school call him Al. His father, Alois, came over in 1888, one of 20 million Europeans who crossed the Atlantic chasing something. Land, work, a life that felt less predetermined. He settles in a German-speaking community outside Cleveland, gets a foreman's job, brings his pregnant wife Clara. And on April 20th, 1889, a boy is born. Al is quiet, sensitive. He draws constantly, buildings mostly, cities that don't exist yet. His teachers say he has a gift. His father says, get your head out of the clouds. That wound, the father who can never be pleased, the talent that's never enough, the love that always comes with conditions, that wound is real. And it doesn't care what country you're born in. He's 19 when his mother dies. He takes what little she left him and goes to Chicago, the Art Institute. He has a portfolio of architectural sketches. Technically impressive, emotionally cold. They reject him. Not cruelly, just no. He gets a room in a boarding house on the South Side, works odd jobs, eats badly, reads everything he can find. And here's where something quiet begins to shift. Because Chicago in 1908 is one of the most ideologically turbulent cities on Earth. Socialist organizers on one corner, nativist preachers on the next, newspapers screaming about immigrants stealing American jobs. Ironically, about people exactly like him. He reads a pamphlet one evening by Henry Ford, the most famous American alive, called The International Jew. He reads it twice. He doesn't throw that one away either. Here's the first thing most people get wrong about Adolf Hitler. He didn't start as a politician. He started as an audience member who suddenly realized he could do it better. In our alternate timeline, it happens at a rally for a veterans group in 1921. Al is 32, a World War I veteran. He enlisted to prove he was American, fought in France, came back with a limp and a chest full of ribbons, and a country that still looked at him sideways because his last name was German. But tonight, something unlocks. The speaker loses the crowd, goes flat. People start murmuring. And Al, quiet, strange Al who never fit anywhere, raises his hand. Can I say something? He speaks for 4 minutes. When he stops, the room is completely silent. Then one man starts clapping. Then another. He had found the one thing he was better at than anyone else in the world. And that gift, that terrifying, morally empty gift for making a crowd feel understood and then enraged, was worth more in the wrong hands than any army. The Depression arrives like a verdict. 30% unemployment, Hoovervilles, men who built things with their hands suddenly begging for bread. Al is in his 40s now. He has a movement, a radio program, a hall in every Midwestern city that fills up when he speaks. He runs for Senate in 1934, wins. He runs for president in 1936 as a third-party candidate, doesn't win, but wins enough states to hold the balance of power, enough votes to make both parties call him. And here's where the story takes a turn that surprises everyone, including him, because the system doesn't bend for him. Not the way it bent in Germany. America's Constitution is 150 years old. Its courts are independent. Its press is free and it bites. The NAACP has lawyers who have spent 30 years fighting exactly this kind of power. The labor unions are organized, interracial, and they despise everything he stands for. He cannot build camps. He cannot suspend elections. He cannot, with one speech, make himself Führer. He tries to go around the courts push back. He tries to silence a newspaper prints it anyway. He wins a vote in the Senate. It dies in committee. He is powerful. He is influential. He is genuinely dangerous. But he is contained. And the most chilling part of the story isn't what he achieves. It's what he almost achieves. Here's the moment the thought experiment turns. Here's the detail that changes everything. Adolf Hitler, the real one, read American race law and called it the most advanced racial legislation on Earth. He wrote about it in Mein Kampf. He wasn't exaggerating. Because America didn't need him. Jim Crow, forced sterilization, 60,000 Americans legally. Japanese internment, blessed by the Supreme Court in 1944. Native American boarding schools designed in the government's own words to kill the Indian, save the man. An American Hitler doesn't build this system. He finds it already built. He doesn't introduce racial hierarchy to America. He introduces a microphone. He makes official what was already happening. He gives a name to the thing that had no name. He points at the existing structure and says, this is policy now, and defending it is patriotism. That is the twist. That is the horror. The Holocaust, the specific industrial genocide, almost certainly doesn't happen without the real Hitler in that time, in that place. But a slower, more durable American version of the same impulse? America had already been running that experiment for 300 years. But America also built something Germany never had time to build. A free press with a long memory. Courts that answered to a document, not a man. A civil rights movement with 30 years of legal strategy already in motion. A democratic culture old enough to recognize what it was looking at. Dorothy Thompson, a journalist who had actually interviewed the real Hitler in 1931, wrote, "He is the very prototype of the little man." She saw it clearly. She said it loudly. And people listened. That's the difference. Not that Americans were better people. Not that darkness couldn't find a foothold here. The difference was that the opposition was organized, institutionalized, and constitutionally protected in a way that German opposition to Hitler never was. Could they have stopped him? Probably. At great cost, over a long time. But the more important question isn't whether they could stop him then. History never sends the same monster twice. It doesn't offer you the mustache, the accent, the name you already know to be afraid of. It offers you the conditions. Economic despair, a scapegoat, a man who makes the broken feel powerful again. It offers you those conditions, and then it watches to see whether the institutions hold, whether the press stays free, whether the courts stay independent, whether ordinary people understand clearly enough why those things exist before they're gone. Adolf Hitler was not inevitable in Germany. He was the result of failures, democratic, economic, human failures that accumulated slowly, invisibly, until suddenly they weren't invisible anymore. And the only reason our alternate history ends differently, the only reason the American version gets contained, is because enough people in enough places were still paying attention. Are you? Is because enough people in enough places were still paying attention. Are you?